All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have made it to chapter 4. New chapter, new lesson. Let's do it. First, obviously, we need to discuss the vocab. So there are 3 vocabulary words that you are needing to define. Well, I've already defined it for you. Now you're just going to give us some examples. So a terminating decimal is a decimal that is expressed in a finite number of digits. That should say number. Go ahead and add an in there. Number of digits, or it ends. So an example of this would be like 0.75. Notice that it stops. It does not continue going on and on forever. We could also have like 4.7381. It stops. It ends. So that is a terminating decimal. It stops. The next one is a repeating decimal, a decimal whose digits repeat forever and ever and ever. So an example of this would be like 0.3333 repeating, and it keeps going on and on and on that same number. Or it could also be something like 5.929292. Notice that just keeps going on and on and on forever, as indicated by those decimals. But then when that number does go on and on forever, we indicate it, instead of writing 0.333333 multiple times, bar notation is going to represent that a digit is repeating. So this example right here, using bar notation would be 0.3. And because the 3 is repeating, you're going to put that bar notation up above it. Same thing over here for this 5.92 that is repeating. You're going to write 5 and then 92 with the bar notation, because that is the number that repeats. For this first one, the 0.3 repeating, you are not going to put like 0.33 repeating, because it is just the 3 that's repeating. So it needs to be in simplest form of that 0.3 with the bar notation up above. All right, now that we have our vocabulary words, hopefully it will help us with our problem. So long division, you are going to have to change a fraction. You turn it first into a decimal and then likely into a percentage, but make sure that you are reading the question for each one of these. So the first one, Owen got his test back and saw he got a score of a 13 out of 20. So on our homework assignments that we've been doing since, I don't know, the beginning of the year, you are going to write this fraction as 13 out of 20, or number correct out of 20. So you're going to write 13 over 20. And then we're going to convert that fraction into a decimal. And how we have to do that is using long division. So the number on top always goes inside of my division bar. So it's going to bring back some elementary memories. That 13 goes on top because I'm saying 13 divided by 20 out front. So the first thing you ask yourself is, that number out front, how many times does that go into the number that's underneath that division bar? And 20 does not go into 13. So when that is the case, you're going to put a decimal up here and a decimal down here with a 0. Now what that number is 130. So 20, how many times does 20 go into 130? Well, I'm going to get near it. I know that 20, and you can always write out your 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. So I know that I'm trying to find where 130 is. So 130 goes right here, and you can't go over it. So I know it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So 6 times 120. Or 20 gives us 120. My apologies. And then you subtract it out. So I end up with 10 left over. When that is the case, you need another 0. Bring it back down because we continue working out our long division. Then again, I see 100. So when I count over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know that 20 goes in there 5 times. So 5 times 20 does in fact give us this 100 with 0 remaining. So therefore, this as a decimal is 0.65. And all I did there was, that was essentially what happens in our calculator when we take 13 divided by 20. When I say take the top number divided by the bottom number, or the numerator divided by the denominator, you would get 0.65. And then on all of our homework assignments up until now, you take this decimal and you move it 2 places to the right, because the question, it says, what is his percent? So therefore, when I move it 2 places to the right, I know that his percent is a 65% on that homework assignment. So this one is a terminating decimal, that 0.65. Notice that it stops, but you may see different long divisions that will result in a repeating decimal. That's what we're about to do right now. So Miss Ginnivan was shooting hoops with Davis, and she only made 2 baskets out of 12 tries. Woof. Good try, Miss Ginn. Whew. She made 2 baskets out of 12, so therefore that fraction is 2/12. And whenever you have a fraction, before you immediately get started with that long division, make sure to simplify it. So if I made 2 baskets out of 12, I know that the number 2 goes into both the numerator and the denominator. So I'm going to simplify this out to 1/6. And then I'm going to use 1/6 for my long division instead of 2/12 because we're going to just deal with much smaller numbers, which is nice. So my 1 goes inside, my 6 goes on the outside. 6 does not go into 1, so therefore you are going to include a decimal, and a 0. So now 6 goes into 10. And again, I like listing out my 6s. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42. We got 48. And I'm just going to stop for now. We may need to include more, but that just sometimes is helpful for quickly calculating because I can see that the number 10 goes right in here. So therefore, I only know that it goes in 1 time. 1 times 6, I get 6 with a 4 remaining. And so then we are going to include another 0. So then the number 40, looks like it goes right in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. 6 times 6 is 36. Subtract it out, I get 4. Okay, let's add another 0. Okay, I feel like we just did this. Well, that's because we just did. I know that it goes in 6 times, so 6 times 6, 36. Notice that this is just going to continue repeating. And when that is the case, I can stop because I see that that number 6 repeats multiple times. So my original fraction was 2/12. My decimal, instead of writing 0.1666666 for forever and ever and ever, you are instead going to write 0.1 and then 6. And that 6 is repeating. So go ahead and put that bar notation right here. But then again, the question says, what was her percent? So my percent, when I take that decimal, move it 2 places to the right, I now have 16.6 repeating percent. Because I do want to keep that bar notation, but you don't want to keep it on the 16 because once you move it twice, it's actually that 10th place value, that 6, that is repeating. Alrighty, now you are going to try these 2 examples on your own about Salvi hitting 15 out of 45 baskets, or at-bats, sorry, and Mr. Weber and his soccer cleats. Make sure that once you create your fraction, that you go ahead and simplify that fraction first, and then show that long division very similar to what we did right up above. Go ahead and pause. Alrighty, so take a look at my work. Salvi got 15 out of 45. I simplified that down to 1/3, and 1/3 looks to be the decimal 0.3 repeating. So you would go ahead and write that like that. And then remember here, we need a percent. So I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right, which remember, if this is repeating, this is like this 3 goes on and on and on forever. So therefore your final answer is 33.3 with a bar notation percent, and do make sure that you remember that percentage sign. If you did not get that correct, remember you need to pause the video and I want you to rework these notes correctly. Do not ever have incorrectly worked notes. Then for you try number 4, Mr. Weber, he had 18 out of 30, which simplifies down to 3/5. And notice that 3/5 did give us that decimal of 0.6. And then when I have 0.6 and I move my decimal 2 places to the right, if I don't see a number right here, we know that I can add the number 0. I wouldn't add the number 6 because it's not 6 repeating. But I do include that number 0 because now that my decimal is at the end, this answer is 60%. It is not 6%, it is 60. All right, let's flip over our notes. Alrighty, so I went ahead and wrote this out. You can go ahead and write this with your pencil right now. 456 and 123 thousandths. So 456 and 123 thousandths. So notice that this word "and" is representing the decimal. And keeping this in mind, with our place value, if it were just to be 456.12, you would say 456 and 12 hundredths, because that 2 is in that hundredths place value. Like I said, keeping those things in mind, we are now going to turn decimals into fractions. How we do that is we are going to write it how we read it. All right, so recalling this place value, we are going to go ahead and convert decimals into fractions. And how we do that is we just write it how we read it. So this right here, Whit Merrifield's current batting average is 0.292, or 292 thousandths, based on that 2, that is in the thousandths position for the 2021 season. So 292 thousandths. And with these large numbers, we do need to go ahead and simplify this out. Because both these end in an even number, I know that they are divisible by 2 because they're even. So 292 divided by 2 is 146 over 500. And then yet again, I do this again because I see that they're both even. Divided by 2, divided by 2. I end up with 73 over 250. And I know that I'm done because 73 is a prime number, which means that there are no other multiples of 73 besides itself and 1. So you just go ahead and box that in. Then for number 6, one of Miss Glasscock's old recipe books, a recipe calls for 1.8 cups of sugar. What is that fraction equivalency? So 1.8, or that is 1 and 8 tenths. So how we write that is 1 and 8 tenths as that mixed number. But then remember, we always need to be in the simplest form. I know that the number 2 goes into both of these. So my final answer is going to be 1 and 4 fifths for her fraction in simplest form. All right, and then it looks like there are 2 you try problems about Maddie and Mr. Sharp. Go ahead and pause the video and try these 2 on your own. Go ahead and pause. Alrighty, take a look at my work. The first one, Maddie ate 62 hundredths of a Hershey bar. 62 over 100, that simplifies down to 31 fiftieths. So that's for that first problem. And for the second problem, Mr. Sharp is using a lumber that is 3.20, or 3 and 20 hundredths. I went ahead and simplified that down to 3 and 1/5. This rounding practice, we're actually going to wait and do that as a bell work together in class. So go ahead, and you are done with the notes for today. Good luck on your problems.